Hello. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be with you today. I'm going to bring you a short and sweet episode to really solve a problem about tackling a new law that was passed and helping you to file your BOI report if you have an LLC. All right. Now, just a little personal note before I start. I'm coming back. I'm on my first day back from a week off. And yes, it's a bananas time of year for me to take a week off. Um, but my kids have their spring break. Um, and traditionally, it has always come in the one of the worst weeks of the year for me. And it has been such a sore point that never in my children's lives had I spent their spring break with them. And our main chance to take a great family vacation I've sacrificed since the starting of Sunlight Tax. And one of the things that I really worked on once I got my business to a certain level was I wanted to find a way to be able to spend that time with my girls and with my family. And it took a long time. It took a lot of work to get the systems in place to do it. And frankly, to sell my tax preparation practice was required for me to do that. There's just really no way to be the owner of a tax prep business and take a week off right before the tax deadline. And so 2 years ago, I finally made that happen. And so now I'm all in on tax education, but I no longer have, 300 people calling me desperately right by the tax deadline. And of course, I love serving you. And for those of you, my former clients, I'm forever grateful to you. But I feel so happy that I am now for the second year in a row, been able to actually be with my family, be with my daughters when they have a week off of school. And that's been a goal for a long time. And I'm just feeling a lot of gratitude that I, did the work of getting my business to a point where I could get that off my plate, because obviously the reason I run this business is to support my family. And there was a weird conflict feeling like I had to put them in a camp and ignore them and be like, nobody bother me, I'm really busy. And it feels really great. So we went to LA, we were in California, we went to the Bay Area as well, and went to Harry Potter World, Universal Studios, and saw Big Sur. And God, is California beautiful. um, anyway, that was a joyful, wonderful experience. And I am so grateful that I was able to do it. So today, on today's episode, I want to help you do a hard thing. So I like to think of myself as the place where you can come for the hard stuff. And that's not always taxes. I follow tax law and a lot of regulation around people like us, small businesses. And so it's been really important to me to get good information out there for you about the new Corporate Transparency Act, because it is a law. There's a new law. It went into effect January 1st of 2024. So it's a couple months old at this point. But it's a new law that's gone into effect that actually affects LLCs, single member LLCs, most especially, although it is for all small LLCs and all entities that are formed through a filing with your Secretary of State. I'll explain a little bit what that means. So what I want to do for you today is outline, this is actually my second episode on this. I did an episode in January, but I wanted to come in and do an update episode on filing your BOI report to comply with the new Corporate Transparency Act, because I just did my filing. Honestly, I had made 2 attempts before and the website crashed, which is not so great. But I did successfully do my filing just now. And I decided to create a bunch of content for you about it, mostly because I think a lot of people, especially small single member LLCs, are not aware that this law exists. And the fines are stiff, $500 penalty a day if you don't do it, and jail time. So it's really important. You have to do this. You have to do this. So I want to settle your mind because the filing is free. You should not and do not need to pay anyone to do this for you. It is very simple. There's no specialized knowledge needed. So lay your fears aside. I made a video to walk you through me filing my own report, and you can do yours side by side and file your report at the same time. It took me about 7 minutes to file it, soup to nuts. So it's really easy. So let me just give you that caveat. So I want to talk to you about what this law is and what you need to do and who it applies to. And then I have a really awesome gift for you at the end. I made for my Sunlight podcast listeners, I made a free mini course. It'll take you less than 20 minutes to go through and less than 30 minutes in total to watch my video, look at the materials, read the checklist, and then file your own report. So this is something you can get done, and I made it free. And that is really to help encourage you to share it. I'm really, really hoping that you will share this little mini course with your friends, share the URL with your friends, because I really do not want anybody who this law applies to miss out on this filing. I certainly don't want anybody paying those penalties. And let's just get it done. All right. The law is a good thing. I'm really happy it exists, but we do have to comply with it. So let me help you do that. Let's lay out the groundwork. I'm going to give you the walkthrough, and then I'm going to tell you how to get this free mini course. And if you want to not listen to this whole episode and you just want to go straight to that, you can get it at sunlighttax.com/LLC. Okay. The law applies to LLCs, so that is why I put that as the URL. You just have to sign up and then you will get it for free. And it is a checklist that teaches you what the law is. It's a couple additional resources, a podcast I made, an article I wrote. You don't have to read those if you don't want to. It's okay. But there's a checklist and there's a video walkthrough of me filing the report. And very importantly, I show you some letters in my checklist of scams because there are a lot of scam letters going out implying that you're going to get in trouble or go to jail if you don't pay a filing fee. There is no filing fee. This is free. And so if it's not free, it's a scam. So I really want to warn you that. And I don't want anybody to fall into that trap. A Sunlight tax listener sent me a DM on Instagram and actually showed me some scam letters she'd received. And I'm so, so grateful to her. You know who you are, Masha. Thank you. She showed me her letters so that I could share them with you and help you avoid that scam. So I just want to say a big thank you to Masha for sharing those scammy letters, and you can see them in the checklist. I have shared a screenshot with you. All right, so let's jump in. So that URL, one more time, sunlighttax.com/LLC. Okay, now let's talk about what this new law is and what you need to do. So the new law is called the Corporate Transparency Act. This is a regulation that's been in the works for a long time, and it's actually a really good thing. The purpose of this law is to identify the beneficial owners of LLCs in order to stop financial crime. So money laundering, terrorism, human trafficking, all kinds of awful shit happens because of LLCs where the owner is disguised, right? In other words, shell corporations. It used to be that, the Cayman Islands and Bermuda were the sort of like ground zero for awful, unidentifiable LLCs. And the US, sadly, has taken the place as number one in the world for shell corporations. So the issue is that a lot of states, I think, to compete, have created the ability for you to form an LLC through the state. So in the US, you form an LLC through your state, through the Secretary of State of your individual state. And when you do that, some states do not require you to list who the owner of the LLC is, or you can list the owner as another LLC. So you can nest a whole bunch of LLCs so that it is really complicated to see who actually owns it. And that is essentially how crimes get committed, right? By creating an anonymous LLC and then you launder your money through that, or you know, sell human beings, or, traffic in sex slaves, right? And we don't want stuff like that happening. It actually matters that somebody is holding the bag. Somebody can be accountable under the law, right? And it took incredible amounts of resources in the US to prosecute people doing financial crimes because it was so hard to get the ownership information. So the Corporate Transparency Act is a law passed by the Biden administration and by Congress to stop this. And it's wonderful. So the purpose of this law is to identify who the owners of LLCs are. And I will warn you, I don't want you to tune out because you assume that this is a law that applies to big companies and not to you. Actually, the direct target of this law is small LLCs, single member, two-member LLCs, okay? So if you are solopreneur with an LLC, this law applies to you, guaranteed, okay? All right. So the purpose is really just a very simple filing where you identify your legal name and your address. And you have to identify all the people who are beneficial owners of the LLCs. That doesn't just mean the person whose name is on the LLC necessarily. The ownership can actually be a little broader than that. So you want to be careful and read the fine print. But you have to identify all the people who names and addresses who own at least 25% of your LLC. Now, for most of us, if you're a single member LLC, that's just going to be you, right? There's probably not anybody else. But you want to just check the fine print, okay? So if you have an LLC or another entity that was formed through a filing with your state's Secretary of State, then you are going to need to file a new type of report called a Beneficial Ownership Information Report, BOIR, okay? Now, the law was passed and it goes through it's administered through the US Treasury. The US Treasury has a small department called FinCEN, which is the Financial Crimes Unit, okay? So you actually file the form on the FinCEN website. And I have a direct link to the FinCEN website in this free course in the checklist. And I want you to make sure you go directly to this URL because there are, like I said, scams out there trying to get you, of course, to enter all kinds of information, your legal name, your social security number, your a fraudulent payment, your bank routing information, right? There are scam websites looking for to use this as an opportunity to, rob your identity or take money from you that you shouldn't have to pay. So you want to go directly to the FinCEN website to file your BOI report, okay? All right. So the filing, if it applies to you, is mandatory. I want to clarify one little detail. The law applies to any entity that was formed through a filing with your state's Secretary of State. Now, for most of you, that's an LLC. All LLCs in the US are filed this way, so this law applies to all LLCs. However, it also applies to some additional entities. There are some states in the US, not all by any stretch, but some, where just filing a DBA, a doing business as, is done through the Secretary of State. And if that is the case for you, then this law may apply to you as well. You may also have to file a BOI report. So I do want to just add in that little detail because I want to make sure that if you don't have an LLC, but you do have a DBA that was formed through your Secretary of State, then you know that this law applies to you and you have to do this stuff as well. Okay? All right. So the filing is really fast, really easy, and free, okay? I did it myself in about 7 to 8 minutes, okay? And this was because, I had to kind of figure it out. I think if I need to update my form because my beneficial ownership information changes at any point, I think it'll probably take me less time, right? Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 4. So it's really no big deal. Okay. The filing, if this applies to you, if this law applies to you, the filing is mandatory. There is a $500 a day penalty for noncompliance, up to $10,000 total, or 2 years in jail. So they mean business. You have to do this. All right. Okay. Now, the deadline. There's 2 different deadlines. The first deadline is for new LLCs. So if you formed an LLC after January 1st, 2024, then you have 30 days to file your BOI report, okay? In other words, the new rule should be anybody who is filing an LLC from now on should make it a part of the process of forming your LLC to go ahead and just file a BOI report, okay? I want you to put that on your checklist. For those of us who had existing LLCs that existed prior to this law taking effect on January 1st, 2024, we have a much longer deadline, okay? So new LLCs, 30 days. Older LLCs that existed before 2024, we've got a year, okay? So we have until December 31st to file our BOI report. All right. So if you already had an LLC before 2024, you're not late yet. You just go ahead and do it now. Okay. Everybody else, do it immediately. All right. So this is not an annual filing. This is a one-time report, or it's a report that needs to be updated or refiled anytime you have a change in the beneficial ownership information. Okay. So if, for example, I at Sunlight Tax were to take on a partner, that would be a change in beneficial ownership. There would be a new additional owner that I would need to report in addition to myself. Okay. I don't plan to do that, but I'm just using an example. Okay. The same with you. And of course, this could go the other way. Perhaps you lose a partner. You could gain or lose beneficial owners. And if that happens, you'll need to refile, and you will have 30 days to file an updated BOI report within 30 days of that change. Okay. All right. So if you don't have any changes in your beneficial ownership, you don't need any updates. Okay. This is not an annual filing. It is just updated when there's a change in ownership. Okay. That's really it. It's no big deal. And all you need to provide is your name, your address, and a copy of your driver's license or ID. So it could be passport, could be driver's license. I think there may be a few other forms that they accept. I also want to make a note for New Yorkers. If you have an LLC based in New York, and I don't just mean the city, I mean the state, I want to let you know that you will have an additional filing with the state of New York, because New York passed its own law called the LLC Transparency Act. Now that the New York law does not take effect until 2025. So that starts January 1st, 2025. But starting next year, if you're in New York, you are going to not only comply with the federal law and do the BOI filing on the FinCEN website at the U.S. Treasury, you will also need to go to New York's Secretary of State and do filing for the New York Transparency Act. I also want to just give a little detail to the New Yorkers that the New York database is going to be publicly searchable. So if you don't want your address publicly viewable, publicly listable, this is a good time to get a PO box. Now, this is always the case with LLCs. I want to warn you, LLCs are searchable databases. You can go to the Secretary of State of any state and you can look up LLCs in that state, and it will give you the addresses. So this is why I always tell people, if you don't want anyone to be able to find where you live, you don't want to establish your home as the place of business for your LLC. You want to get yourself a PO box. Okay. That's a really important detail. Okay. Now, New Yorkers, that database is going to be publicly searchable, but I will say that the FinCEN, the federal report, is not publicly searchable. It's only searchable to law enforcement. Okay, so it's really just for a law enforcement tool. All right. So 1 and 2 person LLCs are the primary target of this law. So do not assume that you are too small for this. That is how shell corporations operate. They tend to be small. And so the purpose being to stop those, you want to be careful and not assume that this doesn't apply to you. I do also want to say, because LLC addresses are public information, I believe this makes it so that there are a lot of companies that just scan, they probably just scrape with a bot all the addresses of LLCs from Secretary of States, and they send out letters, that are very scary. They look like IRS documents. They look like they're bills. Like I said, this wonderful person in my audience sent me 2, not 1, but 2 examples of scam letters that she received asking for a fee. And they look very, very official, but they're not real. So beware that you may get letters in the mail asking for you to pay a fee or put your social security number, and you do not want to do that. Be careful to go directly to the FinCEN BOI Report URL yourself. Don't click any other links. Okay. All right. So those are the basics for this new Corporate Transparency Act, the new rules for LLCs. To summarize, if you have a new LLC, you have 30 days to file. If you have a change in beneficial ownership, you have 30 days to update and refile. And if you have an existing LLC that predated 2024, you have 1 year to file. So those of us with LLCs already, we have a longer timeline, okay? And I want everybody to have it on their radar that if you have a change in the beneficial ownership of your LLC, you're going to have to file a new report, okay, and update it. All right. So those are the basics. I hope that has been really, really helpful for you. And I want to tell you that I made a free mini course for you. It's super short. It's like 20 minutes tops, with a checklist, a video walkthrough of me step by step filing my own BOI report at the correct URL for free. You can open up that YouTube video, watch it yourself, and you can file your report in another tab as I go, pausing the video so you do it alongside me and get yours done for free. For free with no scams. In my checklist, I also show you some of these scam letters. And I also give you a couple additional resources if you want them. I have an article I wrote about the Corporate Transparency Act, and I'm linking you also to a podcast I recorded earlier in the year about the CTA. Okay, so if you want to get those resources that I made for you, they are totally free, and I encourage you to share them with your friends, because I do not want anybody to miss the fact that there is this new law that exists, because it's a $500 per day penalty if you don't do the filing, and it can be up to $10,000 and up to 2 years in jail. So let's not let that touch anybody, and let's not let any of our friends fall prey to these scammy letters that are definitely out there. All right, so share widely with your friends and get your own report in for free, and you'll be all set. You can get that at sunlighttax.com/LLC. So I'll say that one more time, sunlighttax.com/LLC. I hope that gives you some peace of mind that this is a really easy thing that you can do. It's not hard at all to comply with this law. The really key thing is you have to know it exists. You have to know that it applies to you, and you need to do it. Please share it with your friends, because they may not know it exists. I made that course free on purpose so that you would be able to share it really, really freely, and everybody can get this done and nobody gets in trouble. All right. And I also want to let you know, it is really my goal to be helpful to you in all kinds of things, right? Of course, my primary goal is to be helpful to you when it comes to your taxes. But this is not a tax law per se. It goes through the US Treasury. But it's not a tax law. It's a really good law. And I just want you to be aware that I really try to keep my eye out for things like this to be helpful to you. And these things are not always coming around the tax deadline. I put this out after the tax deadline on purpose to just kind of give you the message, like, I'm looking out for you all year long. So if you want to, I hope you listen to the podcast in the summer, in the fall, times of year when you don't need me for your taxes. I just want to let you know that it is really my goal to always be here and give you alerts like this one when there's something that applies to you. So that's something I care very much about. And if you care about that or want to be aware when laws like this pass, I hope you'll follow my work. All right, and share it with your friends. All right, so one more time, you can get that free stuff, the checklist, the video, the free course at sunlighttax.com/LLC. That is my gift to you. I am so happy for you to get this done and pay nothing to me or to any scammers. All right, so enjoy that, share it with your friends, and I will see you next week, everybody. Bye. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel. I'm so grateful for that. This video is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links I reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.